Hey everyone, just hopping in before the episode gets started to let you know that there will be spoilers for Pokemon, just in case you're not caught up. Otherwise, enjoy the show. Hello, sunshines. I'm Universally Geeky, and this is Deep in Plot, a podcast for geeks, about geeks, and by geeks. On this show, we break down archetypes and tropes and the characters or situations that fit in the brand. And just for fun, we rate them. All of these ratings and rankings are based on our own personal opinions and experiences, but of course, you are welcome to add your own in the comments. I'm not doing this by myself, though. Let's welcome our guest, Bryan, and returning is BJ. Hey, everybody.
Pika P.
I would love it if you did the entire thing just by talking as Pikachu.
I would love that.
You ruined it.
Dang. Pika P.
We all just use Pokemon talk for the entire episode. I'm sure that would be
amazing.
Best episode. Like it's gonna be the most watched.
Yo. So many people.
So many people. So today we will be doing something a little different, but we're going to be discussing the hero's journey. The hero's journey is a story pattern detailing the adventure a hero takes. On a basic level, it is the hero's departure, initiation, and return. The departure includes the call to adventure, where the hero either experiences something that encourages them to leave, they have a want for adventure or to adventure, and leave the norm behind, or they have to save their hometown. The first step of this call is receiving some sort of supernatural aid, which then leads them to the threshold where they may face their first battle. During the initiation stage, the hero faces a new world, very much unlike their own, where they may meet their mentor, their hero partners, love interest, or damsel in distress, and face trials and tribulations. Following this, the hero faces the major ordeal, which is not the climax of the story. This is where the hero faces their biggest challenge yet, but it will mean that they now have the skills to continue to drive their plot forward. The road back details their quest to seek out the antagonist for their final showdown, where their flaws are still slowing them down and there's still much work ahead. In the mastering the journey stage, the hero faces down the antagonist and everything the hero has learned thus far comes to a head. Finally, the return with the elixir, which is the hero coming back home with whatever reward, knowledge, or experience they gained on their adventure. Our hero we will be detailing today is Ash Ketchum from Pokemon. Now, Bryan and BJ, can you give us a little overview of how you are connected to Pokemon? How did you get involved in this fandom?
Okay, Bryan.
I just got into, no, just kidding. I've been a Pokemon fan since the late 90s, as soon as the trading card game came to the United States. My dad worked with some coworkers in Japan who they sent him over some pocket monster cards and said, I think your son might like this. And the answer was yes. I fell in love deeply with Pokemon, with the card games and the anime, and just loved all the games growing up. As an only child, it was like the perfect single player game. It was like, you get to build a team of your friends. Yay. Like whenever I played the game, I would only catch 6 Pokemon total because I felt bad about releasing Pokemon or like having Pokemon in a box. But what if they get lonely? So they were my friends. So I've been with the brand ever since I played every single game. I've watched pretty much all of the anime up until Black and White. So the first 80 bajillion episodes of the anime.
Many.
And it just continued on since.
Nice. Thank you. BJ.
All right. Yeah, I'm kind of similar to Bryan. I think I got swept up in all the Pokemon craze when it first started back in the day. So, I started out by playing Pokemon Red, and I've played literally every video game ever since that they've done. Well, the main ones. I haven't done all of the offshoots, but look, it's on our own little Pokemon. Look at it.
Oh,
you might hear some meowing in the back. It's just from this little orange Pokemon.
I miss your little kittens. You're so cute.
So yeah, I've been playing all the games up until like Scarlet and Violet now, the newest ones that just came out. I've watched literally all of the anime except for like the newest dub episodes, but I've caught up with everything and I've been keeping up with everything up until, spoilers, he wins his world championship crown. I know. It's funny how like that was like technically that hasn't happened in the United States episodes yet. He's almost there, but like the Pokemon channel posted it anyway.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, thanks, Pokemon. Like,
yeah, I was like, I
was,
think by this point everybody knows
about
right?
it, and
yeah.
like all the things being like, look, he won. It's like, wow, okay, I guess nobody wanted to wait to see for it to get here, but whatever. But yeah, it's been a long journey. So I just feel very woefully underdressed without my Pikachu representation. So I just went with something that's like red and blue.
that works.
You know, it was like OG colors.
I love it. No, it works out perfectly. Well, since we're talking about that, listeners, if you are not watching, Bryan looks adorable in a Pikachu onesie. I'm repping Pikachu on the shirt and I'm hanging out in Pallet Town today. As for me, your host, my Pokemon knowledge is honestly very limited. So I'm glad to have BJ and Bryan here today. I did spend time with Pokemon when I was young, but also this might have been when I should have known that I was a little OCD, because I would get the cards and I wanted to collect all of them just to have them. And there would be days spent either reorganizing them by number or by power. So lots of, should have known then. But I did play red, yellow, and blue, I believe. And then got mad when they released like a whole bunch of new Pokemon, because I think I almost had all of them. And then they were like, here's this whole new set. And I said,
No, they're over 1,000 now.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. I am good.
They broke that barrier with the newest games.
There's so many. I keep seeing new ones and I'm just like, yeah, no, I stopped. I definitely stopped. Like now all my kids, my students will bring Pokemon to music class and I have to be like, that needs to go in your pocket. That's not supposed to be here. But that's like the new thing, is that kids are doing it again, collecting the cards, which is great, but also like, don't bring them to class. Don't do it. So
not on my time.
Not on my time. That's recessed. Man. Now let's catch up our audience on our character. Ash Ketchum is a bright, cheerful 10-year-old boy with a determination to catch them all the Pokemon, that is, creatures with different specialized powers that depend on their breed. He is sympathetic to his Pokemon and loyal to the friends who travel with him. While in our time, Ash has been on this journey for 25 years. In the story, we aren't actually sure how long it has been since Ash has left his home. So we get to see his hero's journey kind of restart over and over, depending on the story and where you are. I don't want to give away too much because we will be discussing different aspects of his journey throughout this episode. Now, before we get started, I have one very important question for you both. Who is your starter Pokemon?
All right, so are we going with like classic Gen 1 starters between Squirtle, Charmander, or Bulbasaur, or are you letting us pick any of the starters through the 9 generations that exist so far?
I will let you do that.
I'm going to limit my choice to the first generation, since we're specifically talking about Ash and like Ash is the first. I am a Squirtle starter.
Okay.
That's me.
Sounds weird to phrase it like that. I don't know why. I don't know why the phrasing of that was just like, okay, so I'll give both answers. So same for Gen 1, definitely still Squirtle Squad all the way. But my favorite Pokemon ever is one of the starters, and his name is Rowlet, and he's a little small boy who is a little owl, and he has a little grass bow tie, and he's so cute.
I'll have to look him up. That sounds adorable.
I think I saw him and immediately fell in love.
I love that. Bryan, do you have a favorite Pokemon who's not necessarily your starter, but your favorite Pokemon?
I do. My favorite Pokemon is Dugong because it's just a giant seal or a dugong because they're adorable. And I saw it in the anime for the first time and I screamed, I want to hug it. And I love it. And it's great. And I still carry the Pokemon card. It's Misty's Dugong that I have. I carry my backpack every day.
I do have to say that is probably not Dugong, but Seal is one of the most creative Pokemon names that they've ever come up with. What is it? It's a seal. So we're gonna call it Seal.
Seal.
But with two E's, so it's Seal. Yeah.
That's funny. I would have to say my starter is also Squirtle, mostly because I love turtles. He was always
I like puddles.
I like turtles.
I like puddles.
He was always really cute. But I would think, yeah, no, he's probably my favorite though. I do love Togepi, mostly again because he's cute. And I know that's super old school. But I love Togepi. Togepi. All right. So again, this episode is going to flow a little bit differently because I am a Pokemon novice and I asked my guest to help me with the questions this time around. And boy, did they come up with some good ones. So sit back and enjoy as we discuss.
We were like, you want some questions? You got some questions.
Exactly. That was
just
like,
a couple.
I did. I texted and I was like, what would you like to discuss this time around? And both of them were like, blah, 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 blah. So I'm excited. And I think that might be the move from now on because that was so good. So there's some really interesting questions.
I mean, people might not be as like good as us. So just be prepared that maybe this is, could be a one-time thing. I don't know.
One-time thing. This was amazing. So that made me very happy. As always, there may be some spoilers ahead. So if you're not caught up on the story, you may want to skip certain parts. We did already mention that Ash is the
end
champion
of the entire series.
Sorry, I will put a disclaimer at the beginning, but we already, spoilers ahead. Just be prepared. First, I would love for you all to just tell me a little bit more about Pokemon lore and legend. I know you mentioned that that's a big part of, obviously, of the whole thing. So what are some things that stand out to you are the most interesting about the lore and legend?
I mean, I feel like Pokemon has a creation theory where it's like Pokemon the universe, there was a floating space egg, and out of that egg was born Arceus, the creator, who created time and space, which is Dialga and Palkia, which then created Uxie, Azelf, and Mesprit, emotion, thought, and I forget the other one.
Willpower.
That one. I get them mixed up. But then it's like there's a whole theory of like these Pokemon created the universe, and from them, like, is that evolution to humans in that and Pokemon and animals?
Yep.
But like just there's a full-on like historical lore that is in the game that's how the universe was created.
Yeah, which is funny because there's this meme that was going around for a little bit that is hilarious for people that know Pokemon really intimately, but it's like, what was the first Pokemon? And the four options are Bulbasaur, Rhydon, Mew, and Arceus. And technically, all four of them are correct answers.
That is so odd.
Bulbasaur is number one in the Pokedex.
Yeah.
Rhydon was the first Pokemon that was ever designed. Mew is the genetic ancestor of all Pokemon, and Arceus is like the Pokemon god. So all four of them are correct.
Yay, Pokemon!
Right?
That is so interesting.
But it was funny to go. So the legendary Pokemon is interesting to like follow the arc of like what they've created, because at the beginning they were like cool birds and a psychic cat. Yeah.
And now I am you can catch. God,
oh yeah.
Wow.
Well, and then the next generation was like, okay, let's level this up a little bit. All right, so we have the Lord of the Seas, and then we have like a phoenix, right? So phoenixes can revive things. So let's say this thing revived these 3 Pokemon, and then they became the legendary Pokemon of that region. So you're getting a little bit more lore there, a little more story, as opposed to just 3 random birds. And then the next generation after that was like, okay, I think that's where they really started perfecting the concept of like the trio. Because you hear that a lot with like the main, they call them box legendaries now, because all the art since Red and Blue, all of the cover art have been legendary Pokemon on each main series game. You had Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza, and they were the lord of the seas, the earth, and the sky. So you've got like Groudon created the land, and Kyogre created the oceans, and Rayquaza was like the balance between them and created like peace and harmony in this, and watched over everything in the sky. So you already started getting a little bit more lore with them, and then Gen 4 popped around and they were just like creationism. Like literally they went full on excuse me, they went full on religion with it in a sense. There's even like a church in that region, which I think is the only time they've ever had something like that. And then they just like, I feel like they kind of peaked with that. And then they're like, now what do we do?
Wow.
Yeah, and then they're like, look at these cool dragons. After
Right,
they went back
dragons.
to look at shiny bird right after.
They had these like swords of justice, they called them. The fans call them the musketeer because they all look like kind of deer-ish, but they're also like swords. So it's just been over time they've lended more and more story to these creatures, which has driven the story of the games more and more. Because like I said, in Red, Blue, and Yellow, they were just kind of there, right? The story did not revolve around Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos. Mewtwo was kind of mentioned when you're walking through like the Cinnabar Manor. Like that's where he was created. But the story did not revolve around the legendaries. Now the whole story revolves around the legendaries in like every single game, basically.
Interesting.
So that's been interesting in and of itself, because that lends itself to more lore and more history of these regions.
And turning it back into the hero's journey, like if you look at the anime in the first games, it's the inciting incident, you're going to be a Pokemon master. And then the end is, congratulations, you're a Pokemon master. And now through the newer games is, wow, you're going to set out to catch all these Pokemon. Oh, look, you're going to help stop the end of the universe from a giant machine created in the southern region of France.
It got dark.
it gets, and it's like the two box legendaries for X and Y are literally the personifications of life and death. You're like, awesome. So it's like progressed to have these more extravagant inciting incidents and extravagant ways for the heroes are to go, where you yourself are the hero compared to Ash in the anime, and Ash is a character's hero's journey just to be collecting all the Pokemon. But his journey throughout the anime and throughout the series also becomes more of, you are the chosen one, you are this existential idea of a Pokemon master.
Okay. Wow.
It's great.
This is stuff that I had no clue about. So
you're like, what the hell?
Like, do I need to break out my Bible to understand Pokemon? I have questions.
It was really funny because there was like this one event that happened in the games once where you took Arceus to like these ruins and you could literally create a legendary. Like it went through this whole trippy montage type thing that used, in a video game, real world images of random things. And it was basically like, Arceus created this egg. And you got to pick like, I want Dialga, Palkia, or Giratina is like the master of like the antimatter, like opposite world to ours, the distortion world. So you could choose which one you wanted. And it was just like, here you go. You just witnessed me create something. No big.
This sounds so much more complicated than when I first played Pokemon.
I mean, it's a little sacrilegious that a 10-year-old can capture a Pokemon god in a ball, but you know, it's no big deal.
No big deal, not at all. We kind of touched on it, but my next question was, how does the Pokemon lore and legend mimic storytelling traditions or fit into that hero's journey?
I mean, you kind of use Pokemon as a modern day, like look at Greek or Roman stories, the stories of the different gods and how they represent a different Pokemon. They kind of pulled from a lot of the storytelling practices in the past and modernized it in a way to make it part of a video game series and an anime series and a manga and a trading card game and merchandising and everything now. So they definitely pulled from years and thousands of years of resources and storytelling.
It's been pretty cool to see like the inspiration that they pull just in the Pokemon designs by themselves to see what they come up with more recently. You know, like literally the newest Pokemon that they've announced are called Monkey Dory, Okidogi, and Pheasantipity.
Pheasantipity.
So you've got Serendipity, Okidoki, and Hunky Dory. Which I'm like, okay, I see you. I see you, Pokemon. I see you.
But even that DLC that just is coming out soon for Scarlet and Violet is telling a Japanese folktale.
I was also going to say the legendaries in that one are called like the Treasures of Ruin, and their names are like Chin Pao, Ting Lu. Like they're all very heavily Chinese influenced with things. So to Bryan's point, like they've definitely pulled from all kinds of source material to kind of lend itself to the overall story of that hero's journey, because the hero's journey is one of those things that has transcended, I think, culture and storytelling across any type of country of origin or anything like that. Like that's why it's so universally accepted, and I think that lends itself to why Pokemon is so accessible to people and why it's become such a phenomenon, and it's lasted 25 years in this point.
Man.
But you know, it just constantly pulls in stuff that lends itself to like Ash going through that hero's journey. And I think it's interesting because like Ash doesn't go through the typical hero's journey in a lot of ways. He goes through several heroes' journeys.
Yeah.
Sometimes multiple times in an episode. But you know, because what's interesting is like, again, slight spoilers for American audiences, but he wins that championship, right? And he is now the world champion. And they're now doing this 11 episode wrap up series, which I don't know, by the time that this airs may actually be done, because it's going to be done by, I think, the end of March or beginning of April. But it's literally exploring what it means to be a Pokemon master, because his goal has always been to be a Pokemon master, not a champion, right? So like, what does that mean? Does he still want to be a Pokemon master? Did he achieve things that he wanted to achieve? So like literally these 11 episodes are like Ash going through an existential crisis.
As a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
As a 10-year-old. Yay. He got to his midlife crisis early. But it's examining that hero's journey that he's gone through, like literally examining the hero's journey, because they're bringing back all of his old Pokemon for one last hurrah. You know, that you get to see them one last time, and to see where he goes from here. So, you know, I think that's why it's so topical to talk about his hero's journey now, is because he's literally arriving at the end of his large circular hero's journey at this point.
And that's definitely part of it, because I think when I was, you know, doing my research, it's like the end of the hero's journey. Sometimes that hero reaches that point where they're like, do I really want to go home? Did I really accomplish everything I was supposed to do? Maybe I'll stay and do all the things. I think like, trying to think of one character that fits, like kind of like, oh, what is his name in the show? Orlando Bloom's character, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I feel like, Will, thank you. I feel like he reaches that. Will Turner. I think he reaches that point at his end of his journey where he's like, oh, well, I don't really want to go back. Or even just Elizabeth Swann. I don't really want to go back. I want to be a pirate now, and I'm going to stay out here. And so I wonder if Ash will reach that idea of like, well, I did it, kind of. Like you said, that was going to be another question, is what does it mean to be a Pokemon master? And how does that fit into the hero's journey? Because did he actually, because I don't know, from my understanding, being a Pokemon master from Ash's start was catching all 125 Pokemon when there was only, oh, so sorry. No. My bad, guys. It was from catching all 151 Pokemon. And so How does that?
We'll edit
We'll
that
edit
out.
that.
Edit that out in post. It's fine.
Edit,
Edit that out.
edit.
It out. So yeah, my understanding was that Ash's journey was catching all 151 Pokemon, and that was what it was supposed to be. That was what his hero's journey was all about. But now that he is a world champion,
Right.
do you think that's something that he would still try to do?
The newest series in America is called Pokemon Journeys. And that's what's going to eventually lead to, hey, in America, he's also the world champion.
Right.
But his companion in that franchise his name is Go. A not very subtle reference to the fact that Pokemon Go was incredibly, incredibly popular and still is.
Yeah.
But his goal is to catch every single Pokemon. So I think that they did that on purpose to show how different Ash's goal has become, and literally like Go's entire thing, like he just catches shit in every single episode. He's like a Pidgey, boop, a Rattata, boop. Like literally doesn't even battle them. It's literally Pokemon Go in the anime. Just boop, there it is, and I caught it. But he has gone through his own journey through that, and you can tell that like compared to somebody whose goal is actually to capture every single Pokemon, Ash doesn't do that. He never really has, which is funny that was such a slogan of Pokemon for a little while, but he's never really had the desire to catch all kinds of Pokemon. He always befriends, well, more often than not, he befriends his Pokemon before he catches them.
Yeah.
So like in the first 80 episodes, he only physically has 7 Pokemon in the first episodes because there's not a lot of Pokemon that he captures.
Yeah, compared to 80 episodes, if he only has like 7 that are in his Rolodex, that is interesting.
Which I think it stems back from those beginning episodes. Like, what does it truly mean to be a Pokemon master? Mm-hmm. Is it catching them? Is it befriending them and being a kind person to all Pokemon?
Yeah,
and that's why
let's be real. Like, if Ash really wanted to capture every single Pokemon, he would have caught one of the Spearow that he barbecued in the first episode. Like, come on.
True.
Exactly.
Oh, look, they're on the ground, collapsed after being literally vaulted by like a gigantic bolt of lightning. Let me catch one.
Let me just.
Which is why, like, Go is such a good foil from what you described of like this is what the original intent of his hero's journey was to now. Oh my God, what is my life? What am I doing? The existential dread of did I make all of these decisions as a 10-year-old really right? And I think it also shows how the anime has grown up with the people watching it. Because like when it's a kid, it's those very low stakes, even though they feel really high. It's like, no, they're really not that big of problems. So now as we are adults watching the anime and growing with it's that life lesson of like, is your path what you thought it was, and is that okay? It is that it's like, oh God, hit you in the heart.
Yeah.
But that also like is a hero's journey as well. Whether is that hero's journey the same when you set out versus when you decide to return or not. Like Ash returns to Pallet Town almost at the end of every anime season going forward. Like, hey, reset, and then goes on his next journny.
And then he sees Ho-Oh again, and he's like, okay, time to leave.
Oh my gosh, let's go.
Do the thing.
No, but it's true. Like that's the hero's journey for Ash is typically throughout the whole region. Like each region that he goes to has its own hero's journey because the whole goal is gotta get my 8 badges, get to the Pokemon League, have some fun on the way, catch some new Pokemon, and then go and lose in the tournament. So
poor thing.
Every time he loses.
So legitimately, so this is I've only gone ahead and watched the Japanese, like the sub version of this show a couple times. One of them was at the end of the Kalos League, which was Generation 6. And that was the only time he's ever gotten to the finals right? Every other time he's been knocked out in the final 16, the final 8, the final 4. Like, he's gotten far, but he's never made it to the final round. First time he made it to the final round, had a legit team. It could have happened. There was the inevitable giant clash of two really powerful attacks. The smoke clears. They're both standing there. And like, it's his Pokemon versus a Charizard. And the Charizard like does a little stumble, but doesn't fall down. And immediately I was like, like, I knew, I was like, they always fake you out. And then the hero's person falls afterwards. As soon as that happened, I was like, are you serious?
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't with this show.
Can't do it.
I have to stop. I have to
Like,
stop now.
I just imagine like living in the Pokemon world. You're like just a normal person watching like this kid he's got gumption, he's got gall, he's got nerve going to every single region. Like, you're a champion. It's like watching on TV, like, oh, there's Ash again.
Yep.
Like,
that was why I think the only time they ever really referenced a previous tournament in the next series is when he went to like Gen 3 and he meets Max, who ends up being one of his like traveling companions. And he was like, I saw you in the Johto tournament. You were awesome. And he's like, oh, thanks. You lost. And he's like,
dang.
Yeah. Savage.
That does kind of give me a random question.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of memes about this, but would you want to actually live in the Pokemon universe? Like, honestly, it looks terrifying. Like, I couldn't imagine just like walking along and then this Pokemon jumps out and attacks me. I
feel like there's far more mortalities in the Pokemon world than they would like us to believe.
Well, there's also one of the great lores and legends and stories of Pokemon that isn't confirmed, or we don't know if it's true, but the Great War before the first game. Because you walk through the first game and the first anime, there's not a lot of adults. There's not a lot of like men ages 18 to 40. They're either really old men or females or people presenting individuals. So you're like, that seems weird. So the theory is that there was a great Pokemon war, and that's why they're sending out 10-year-olds to go be Pokemon.
What the heck is this?
I know. It's so funny how there's so many like really interesting like theories out there that really aren't. They could be right. We don't know. Like, Lieutenant Surge is one of the gym leaders in the first region, and he mentions America, which is weird, but he also mentions like how these Pokemon like protected him in the war.
That is,
What? So there is a little bit of like, there's some credibility there.
So like right now, as a male aged 18 to 36, I don't know if I'd want to live in the Pokemon universe. If there's going to be a war, my mortality rate doesn't seem super high. But as a 10-year-old, hell yes.
Yeah.
Quick question, just sidebar for you, Bryan. Does the age range that you listed get bigger the closer you get to the upper threshold of that age range?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure.
It does.
As a male aged 18 to 75, somewhere in there.
Somewhere around there, exactly.
It's your stage age, right? Like, that's your stage age. I can represent any of these ages between.
Yeah. I mean, and Bryan mentioned it earlier. There was the theory for just Pokemon in general kind of carries that, but there was, I don't know if it was like 10,000 years ago or some randomly long number, where there was a war that happened, and this was canon, part of the story of X and Y, that there was this massive war that happened in Kalos, and they used the ultimate weapon, which is the thing that the bad guy in that game wants to restart to kill everybody. This is rated E for everyone. So that is definitely a part of the lore. I think for your question, it's interesting how, like, even apart from a potential Pokemon war, one of the other fan theories that makes Pokemon either less or more horrifying, depending on how you think about it, is that the Pokedex entries for all of these Pokemon, since the professor gives you a Pokedex at the beginning of every single game, and you have to go out there and catch all the Pokemon, and then it gets filled in. The theory is that the Pokedex is being written by 10-year-olds, not actual scientific people who have studied this Pokemon. So, like, when it says things like Megcargo has an internal body temperature of 35,000 degrees Fahrenheit, that is hotter than the temperature of the sun. So it would make sense for a 10-year-old to look at a really hot fire slug and be like, it looks like it's like, I don't know, 35,000 degrees.
Right.
You know, like, but there's a, when you get into like how horrifying the Pokedex entries are, maybe the world isn't the greatest to live in sometimes, because the anime makes everything seem really like sanitized and nice and happy, and you know, there's a couple issues, but everything gets solved in the end. It's all nice. Then you have Pokedex entries like Drifloon, the balloon Pokemon. Drifloon will abduct children that hold on to its strings and carry them away into the sky, never to be seen again.
Yep. Or there's also Hypnos, where it's like, Hypno will sneak into rooms at night and hypnotize children and kidnap them. And you're like, what?
Yamask.
Absolutely what?
Yamask is the spirit of a deceased child whose mask it holds resembles the face it once had. Sometimes it looks at the mask and cries.
This is disturbing.
Yes!
So upset.
One day you need to go down the rabbit hole of specifically ghost type Pokedex entries, because they are horrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. I was mostly just considering the idea of like, what is it? The Machamp just punching me in the face as I'm walking down the street.
Yeah,
but those are terrifying. I'm like, I'm good.
So like, I would like to live in the anime version of the Pokemon world. Maybe not so much living in the Pokedex accurate version of the Pokemon world.
That makes sense.
But it's also written by 10-year-olds, so how accurate is it? So
we don't know. Maybe that 10-year-old was being carried away by Drifloon as they wrote it.
Probably.
That is so that is devastating and so sad. Could you imagine? Oh my god.
There's a really funny YouTube series called If Pokedex Entries Were Literal, and they're almost at part 69. And like they literally take the Pokedex entries and they like animate what it would look like, and it's kind of hilarious and also really sad sometimes.
I'm good. I think that sounds terrifying, and I think I'm good. Well, from here, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this bookmark. And we are back. Thank you for waiting.
We should have done the whole like, who's that Pokemon?
For
the commercial break.
I'll have to, maybe I'll split that in. Like,
it's a Jigglypuff seen from above.
I love that.
I might do that because that would be really funny. All right, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for hanging out and waiting and chilling with us. Before we jump back in, you already know that I know BJ through Disney, our time there, but I also know Bryan through our time at Disney too. We met through. Did we meet through the youth education series? Is that how you and I became?
Yeah,
okay.
That's how we met. Yeah,
I was like, that's what I was thinking, because we weren't in the same. We almost were in the same department. We crossed over before you went to the other one. Okay. Correct. And then I came to that one. And then here we are. But yeah, we're all good friends. We sometimes play D&D together, and it's been a while, but we get along. These are my buds, my dudes.
My dude. My dudes.
And we're goofy. We're goofy as heck. We're really weird, but we love it. We love it here. Like I stated before, we've been following Ash's story for a long time, experiencing his journey in video games, anime, and movies. My favorite movie is the one with Mewtwo, as I was saying, because it just makes my heart sad.
It's the only one. It's the only one you've seen.
It's the only one I've seen, so that works too.
It defaults to your favorite. That's automatically your favorite.
It is automatically my favorite because it's so good.
Just keeping you honest, Renee. Just keeping you honest.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So my question to you all, did the anime do an adequate job of maintaining constant growth? Like, do we see Ash change and progress as a hero should if following the hero journey's path? And you're already shaking your head.
Absolutely not.
Go ahead.
So, like, I just love the first season of the anime because it's the one I've watched the most. But he, like, he does not learn. He does not grow. Like, he has a Pokemon Charmander who he takes care of, who he loves and nurtures back to health, and it evolves into Charmeleon. And this Charmeleon hates his guts,
Right.
1000%. And Ash does nothing. He's like, okay, I guess, I guess he's
Absolutely
mean.
not. Absolutely not. Just like
Never.
to Ash, anytime he's like, "Can I use you?" No,
Nah,
no.
no.
No,
And
thank
so,
you.
and then even when he evolves to Charizard, it's like, okay, now you're evolved. Maybe you'll be my friend. No. So he learns nothing. And like, yeah, it takes seasons of him to finally learn.
Mhm.
But like, this
I
dude is
mean,
thick.
it does follow sometimes the rules in the game, which I think sometimes people get upset when like the anime mechanics aren't the same in the games and vice versa. It's like they're two different things. How do you expect them to follow the same rules? However, one of the things that people were like theorizing is that technically Charmeleon might have over leveled at that point to the point of his experience. So, it literally took a full season basically to get Charizard to like him and listen to him again. But I think it's interesting. Like, I would say for up until the end of the Johto arc, which is Generation 2, I would say there is pretty constant growth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll counter Bryan's point for that one. However, I do think I agree with the point later in the series. Absolutely. But Charizard is actually a really good example of that, where like he wasn't listening to his Pokemon. He wasn't like learning about them for a little while. He was just kind of using them, and he would kind of become friends with them a little bit. But like a really good example is like when Charizard finally started listening to him is because in the middle of a battle, Poliwrath like froze Charizard, and like he was literally like frozen, and his tail flame almost went out, which for a Charizard means like death,
Yeah.
literally. And he spent like a full day with Charizard, keeping him warm, like rubbing him, keeping him warm, massaging him, making sure he's okay. And that's when Charizard started respecting him, because he literally like rubbed his hands raw, trying to make sure Charizard stayed warm. So that was a good turning point for Charizard, but also for Ash. And I think he always had a really good intelligence when it came to like what his Pokemon needed in a lot of cases. I mean, that's why he released Butterfree. Sob. That's why like he actually left Charizard behind at this place called Terrific Valley at one point so that he could stay and train. So he had a really good arc. And then the really big kind of finale moment of that arc is when he finally defeated Gary in the Johto conference, which was his rival up until that point. And Gary was kind of a dick the whole time.
Yeah.
And he finally showed him that he has bested him. And since then, they became more friends. But after that, in almost every generation, he basically started over every single time. And it was hard to like say, oh, he's still growing, because he's literally starting over in every single generation minus Pikachu. He would go and be like, oh, what's that? Oh, I don't know how to catch Pokemon anymore or whatever. Like, it was just a reset button, and it was a little annoying. Like, I get the whole point of like it's a kids show and there's new generations of kids watching the show, blah blah blah. Don't care, don't like that argument. The real hardest, dumbest part that people still hate to this day is Ash went to Sinnoh, which I think is where you stopped watching, Bryan, because you said at the end of Sinnoh, beginning of Black and White, he got up against his rival, which in my opinion, Paul was a better rival to Ash than Gary was, because Paul was literally the personification of what gaming had become in Pokemon at that point, where he only wanted Pokemon that were strong. He would like basically the anime version of EV training and IV training, like, and literally, like, if you're not strong enough, release, bye, don't care about you, don't want you, bye-bye. You don't have the ability I want, don't care, you're worthless to me. I'm like, this is what gaming is like right now. It's perfect. Yep. And of course, Ash is like, wow, this guy sucks. I'm friends with all of my Pokemon. And he ends up beating Paul in one of the best battles of the entire franchise. And then the writers had to throw in a trainer who had 2 legendary Pokemon. And that was the only way. They're like, uh-oh, Ash is too strong now.
Yeah.
Can't have him win the tournament, so you have to battle a guy with legendaries. Hey! And of course, Ash lost at
Yeah.
that point, which people were pissed about because it was such a Deus Ex Machina in all the wrong ways. And then he went to the next generation and loses. He only has Pikachu. Pikachu loses to a trainer's starter that he just got.
Yep. And
Like,
Pikachu's been
Pikachu.
around like this is the buffest Pikachu you've ever met. He's been training since day one.
Right.
And like there was a narrative reason for it. Like he had lost because of one of the legendaries showed up and like Pikachu basically lost his power of electricity for just a brief moment. But even so, Pikachu should be able to walk up to the other Pokemon and just be like, and it's like out.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a Thunderbolt. Just smack it and it's dead. So like, and that entire series was a really bad reset for him. It felt like they were making him completely childish again, didn't know anything, which is so funny because it's literally they ping pong back and forth all the time. You'll notice I'm like saying that like this generation sucked, but the next generation, but then this generation, and then next generation. It was very weird. The next one after that was the one where he made it to the finals, and the animation style was really interesting in that one because he was much more mature in a lot of ways. He looked older in a sense, like for some reason, and people were saying like I can't put my finger on it, but like he just looks more mature in this one. And then he lost and went back to school in Alola. Just like, oh.
There you go.
So, no, he
Okay.
does not have very consistent growth. It's frustrating a lot of the times because the ultimate victory for him was a culmination in a lot of ways because he was fighting against previous trainers and champions from throughout the series that it did feel like he had grown and he had learned. The hard part about that was he was using a brand new team in this tournament. He wasn't using his old team or any of his old Pokemon, which kind of felt it sucked a little bit, where it's like, man, for him to be the world champion, that would have been so cool to see like Charizard come back, Greninja come back, to see Infernape, to see like all of his team just like rotate in. So it's hard on a training level to see how much he's grown, but personal wise, you can see it a little bit.
Okay.
And like again, like growing up with the animes and like growing up as the anime was coming out and the games, like you kind of see yourself in that same light as Ash going through his different heroes journeys. Like, oh great, this year's a really great year. This year sucks. Like you can kind of see like, oh, maybe I did have to reset. So you see yourself in Ash through your own hero's journey, which that's what the games did, was put you in the hero's journey spot and have everything happen around you. So they're a great mirror to each other. And yeah, Ash isn't the greatest trainer because this trainers obviously beat him all the time, but he's a great character that represents the hero's journey since he does fail a lot.
Yeah.
And like, especially it was always so frustrating watching him. Like that very first, like you get he's learning, okay, do not put an electric type up against a ground type. Nothing's gonna happen. And then to watch that in the later seasons, you're like, the hell, dude? Did you learn? What's going on? Yeah.
Okay.
Aim for the horn.
So
Right.
would you both say that the hero's journey is more complex in the games then?
It's different because yes, the story is linear and it guides you to that eventual end, but it puts you in the spot of the hero. Like it showed that your hero's journey is not linear. Like I love water and ice types, so I go up to those gyms like fire and grass, and I'm like, oh crap. So it's harder for me for those, and it makes that journey tougher in those moments where someone else who chooses their different Pokemon will have a different hero's journey throughout your time playing the games.
So I'm literally like going through all of the main series games and trying to think of like how well all the games fit into the hero's journey. And it's interesting because like one of the biggest components of the hero's journey, and you'll see this in like tons and tons of movies, it's a narrative structure as much as it is like a hero's journey on a personal level. They have to lose
Yeah.
at a certain point. right? You have to face your major conflict and lose, and then come back stronger and win. You don't really do that in the games. You know, maybe it'll happen. Maybe you'll lose every now and then. But really, you don't really like, there's not a whole lot of narrative moments in those games where it feels like all hope is lost. You know, even with the bigger villain plots that happen in that one, there's never really that moment of like, oh no, what are we going to do? You know, because there's instantly a solution to it. And normally it's nothing that you do. It's the legendary Pokemon showing up and being like, I'll help. And then you're like, cool. Yeah, it's because honestly, I do feel like Scarlet and Violet did a really fantastic job, I think, of creating a different type of arc within it. So spoilers for people who haven't played Scarlet and Violet.
Spoilers.
But have 3 stories essentially that you're going throughout the main part of the game. You're doing the gyms like you normally do, but you also are helping somebody obtaining like these mystical herbs called Herba Mystica. And you're helping someone else take down kind of like these rebellious trainers. And after each one, those do kind of go through little arcs, but afterwards you befriend kind of the main, not antagonist, but, you know, one of the main strong trainers of that story. And then all 3 of those stories come together for when you go into an area called Area 0. And that one, I think you do have a little bit of that stronger, like, oh crap, because you're getting into this area. And I was describing this to somebody who hasn't played it yet, and he's like, I don't know. I'm like, okay, but like, here's the thing. The story actually gets like really freaking good at a certain point. And like, you go to this area, you immediately feel like you shouldn't be there. Like the way that they like build the suspense, the way it looks, the music, there's just something off about it. And you start running into like past or future versions of Pokemon, depending on which game you're playing. So you're basically battling dinosaurs or robots in a sense. And you eventually get down to the bottom of the crater and you find who is supposed to be the parent of one of your companions who came with you. You find out that they're not actually the parent. This is an AI robot that has replaced them. The actual parent is dead. It was killed by one of the legendary Pokemon.
This is so dark.
I know, like that's the thing. Like, you're getting to this point where you're like, what the fuck is happening in this game? And basically the AI is like, look, the professor, the real version of me, they were nuts. Like they were insane. Literally, their plan was to release all of these like Pokemon from out of time throughout the region, which would have released like ecological havoc on everything. And I wanted to stop them, but I couldn't do anything. So now it's up to you. And you go into the room and the AI is like, look, I have fail safes in place. I will try to stop you. You have to defeat me though. And it's like one of the weirdest, most epic battles because they're catching Pokemon from time and sending them out against you. So again, you're starting to feel like there's stakes here. So all that to say, like, I think there are moments where they do good with that. And there are others where it's a little harder to like say, oh, this was a full hero's journey. Right. But this was a really good example. Like this was a really, really strong story for them, which a lot of people were very impressed by, myself included, obviously.
And I feel like the animes, it's easier to get into more of those tropes of the hero's journey because it's a narrative structure. You have the weekly episodes, you have a literal catalog of episodes to watch, so you can see it more clearly. Whereas the games, you can see it clearly in the storyline, but it's still choose your own adventure. Like you're still choosing how you put yourself in those heroes' stories and those heroes' journeys, and it varies by game as well too. Like some games, like the original Pokemon, like Blue and Red, it's so linear. It's the most linear game they have besides probably Sword and Shield, which is a literal straight line. You go from the south to the north, and that's it. Extremely linear. I see BJ's face. I see you. But then you have Scarlet and Violet and Legends Arceus, where it's open world. It's even more of that. You literally choose your own adventure, choose where you want to go, and what order you want to do the gyms in.
Yep. That's actually I forgot about Arceus. That is a really clear hero's journey. You're right. Because at one point you're literally like, they know you're from out of time, like you're coming to the past. So already everybody's like, I don't know about this guy who's in our town, or this girl, if you pick that character, like something off about them. And at one point stuff starts going wrong and they're literally like, get the fuck out of our town. And you're like on your own at that point. So that is your low point. That is your hero's journey moment right now, of them being like, nope.
Right. Okay. Going back to Ash, was his becoming a world champion a satisfying conclusion to his story or his hero's journey?
I think it's more bittersweet because you've seen this character stay the same age for 25 years and you're like, what adventure is he going to get up to next? Like, it's been so entertaining just to see, like, even though I stopped watching the anime, 8, 9 seasons ago, you still like to hear, oh my gosh, he got beat again. You're like, well, duh, he's going to get beat every single time. But then you hear him win and you're like, wait, he won? Yeah. Like that's it? Like, there's no more. Oh, you're like, okay, like, cool. He finally won. Like, you get that retribution, but then it's like, oh, dang. Just like when you finish the Pokemon game, you're like, you caught all the Pokemon. You're like, what do I do?
What happens now?
Like, great. So, like, that's why the show is going through, from what BJ describes as, like, the fallout from winning. We're also going through that fallout of what are we going to do with Ash as this character that we've known for almost 25 years after it's done. Like, it's crazy. My cat agrees.
I was going to say, like, you're going to get the fallout of not listening to your cat if you don't listen to them soon.
No.
So Ash getting the championship title is really, I thought it's a good catalyst to, like, get him to be like, all right, what is my journey going to be like now?
Right.
But I also think it was very satisfying to watch it. Like, this whole arc of his in the newest series about getting to that point. He's battling people he's battled before, so you have very clear indications of how strong he has become over the course of this franchise. So when he finally wins, I mean, again, spoilers for that episode, there is a moment where it's, of course, it has to come down to Pikachu, of course. Always have to end with Pikachu.
Always
on these
Pikachu.
Battles.
Yeah, exactly.
Always Pikachu. And Pikachu's battling against the champion's Charizard, and that's his last one. That's his strongest Pokemon. And there's a moment that Pikachu, like, kind of collapses, but isn't, like, fainted yet. And when he collapses, he has this vision of every single one of Ash's Pokemon from history cheering for him. Like, it went, like, generation by generation, and literally, like, it started with him, like, opening his eyes and, like, Squirtle and Bulbasaur, like, looking and, like, getting him, like, looking in, and then Charizard pops his head in, and that part I was like, oh, this is cute. And then, like, Butterfree came down and I was like, oh my god, like, and, like, literally, like, every time it went to, like, his new I was just like, I was a mess, like, watching that. And then the way that it ended with him, like, winning finally was so, like, you don't want to believe it for a second, because he's come close so many times. And of course you're always like, they're never going to let Ash win. They have to keep him as the main character. What's he going to do if he wins? What else can he do? And then he wins and you're like, what?
Now what?
What?
Yeah.
So I think it's a really satisfying conclusion for his arc, merely because, like, that's what this was designed to do. It would have felt really crappy for him to get that far and lose this, because, again, what does he do now?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it felt really good, and you could tell that they were building to it. So I liked it.
Cool. So one thing I do recall from the Pokemon story is that Ash was late to picking his starter Pokemon, and because of that, Pikachu became his Pokemon after some trials and trust earning, of course. Pikachu becomes the Pokemon who is always at Ash's side, and like you said, he's the one that helps him win this world championship. He becomes Ash's best friend. So why does our hero's favorite Pokemon, and this was Brian's question. I hope I'm phrasing it right, but why does our hero's favorite Pokemon help shape our version of the hero's story, or how did that kind of influence his story? Or Brian, can you add on to that question, because it was a good one. I just didn't know if I phrased it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, it's more also the same thing when you're playing the games. Like, how does your pick influence how you go through your hero's journey?
Hmm.
Like, I always like to pick the water starter because I'm a sad boy. So it's that it influences how you play the game because okay, when you go through the forest level in the first half of the game, you got to get someone grass. So that way, when you come up to another like Pokemon, you need to get the electric type. You need to know what types you get. So with Ash choosing Pikachu or being forced to choose Pikachu, it shapes how his experience going through the rest of it matters. Like he goes to the forest, he catches a Caterpie, falls into Metapod and Butterfree. And so that way, okay, he has Butterfree, but he has no idea how to use Butterfree and like how to do the type pairings. So it's like it influences how you go through that story. I just imagine if Ash picked like Bulbasaur in the
Right.
first, we have because then we have gotten those episodes where he picks up the Bulbasaur, the Charmander, and the Squirtle. Would he gotten those? Would he have gotten a Pikachu? Would he have needed a Pikachu at all? Like it's weird to think about Ash without Pikachu.
Yeah,
Right?
now that it's been so many years, it is hard to not see him walking with Pikachu just chilling on his back shoulder.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, it's funny that you mentioned Pikachu specifically because I think the plan, I don't remember why they changed their minds, but the plan was originally for the mascot of Pokemon to be Clefairy.
What?
Correct.
Yeah. and again, like I don't know why they changed their minds, but I'm glad they did because Pikachu is so much more iconic looking
Yeah.
than Clefairy is. But I think you have an interesting question of the chicken or the egg with Pikachu because Pikachu becoming the iconic face of this franchise naturally lends the company to wanting to make him really powerful so that Ash has a reason to keep him around, as opposed to being like, man, I'm going up against all these strong trainers. I really wish I had a stronger electric type, but I guess I'm stuck with you. I think that was Pikachu being the face made him strong in that sense, because of course he needed to be the best. Literally in that battle against that Charizard, when he wakes up after that vision, he essentially goes Super Saiyan. Like, literally looks like he's going Super Saiyan. So with Pikachu, I think it defines so much of Ash, and they wrote that character because Pikachu as a character, let alone as a Pokemon, reflected so much of Ash. Like they are the exact same person, I guess you could call them. Like they have extremely similar personality traits. They're both very stubborn.
Yeah.
They're both very driven. And that's why they match each other so good, is because he had somebody there who was his constant cheerleader and supporter for both of them. They never were ever going to let the other person down. And that's why they were able to level up in a way. And it was so funny how like after a while you could even pick up on what Pikachu's saying in a sense. Because he would say the same thing if he was referring to specific people. So like he would always say like Pika P to say Ash, because in Japan his name is Satoshi, and that kind of is like close enough.
Yeah, that's cute.
Togepi, when you said Togepi, he would say like PPP to talk to Togepi because Togepi. So it's like there's like again, they're like giving him more character as it went on, and that's what really like established him as like the GOAT,
Yeah.
It justifies why Team Rocket followed this 10-year-old for 25 years just to try to capture Pikachu.
We definitely did not mention Team Rocket at all. I guess I consider them a villain, but not, when you think about Jesse and James, like they were fun and
Jesse. James.
James.
Not necessarily though the big bad that Ash. I felt like the big bad Ash always had to face was just himself and overcoming
Yep.
these tournaments. And so I didn't include them in that hero's journey because they popped
were
up,
the-
but
They were the episodic antagonists.
yeah.
You know, like how many times did they run into crap where it's like, oh no, we fell into a hole again, and Team Rocket snagged all of our Pokemon, and now we have to figure it out, right?
Every like 5 episodes.
Basically.
I know.
Or here's
Which is
this
why
couple
it's
that
funny
looks like Jesse and James, but they don't actually, they're not Jesse and James. They're not Team
No.
Rocket.
My theory is that they knew that these two needed an ego boost. You know, they needed a win, right? So they would play along, be like, they look like Jesse and James. Yeah, just like, hello, old man. Do you need help with your rocks? Like,
Yeah.
oh, yes, you can help me. Ah, it's us. Oh my gosh.
It's like
Wow.
I just love that Jesse and James are like 2 theater kids with an unlimited budget and unchecked resources. It's like this is what would happen if you let them loose in the wild.
I
Oh
love
my
that.
god.
They do have
There
so many
was-
good costumes.
The video clip I keep playing in my mind that just makes me laugh so much is at one point James gets in a Moltres unitard, basically, and they have him up on a crane. Can't even remember the context, doesn't matter. And he goes, I am a flaming Moltres. And Meowth is like, where did he get that outfit? And Jesse's like, I think that one came straight out of the closet.
James was fabulous. Like,
I think-
honestly.
It's interesting with Team Rocket, just to like go down there for a second. James, more often than not, befriended every single Pokemon he ever caught.
James is the true Pokemon master.
Seriously,
I've
really
seen that meme.
legitimately
I've
said
seen
that.
Yeah, I've seen that
People
before
legitimately
because
said, because it's true. The
Yeah.
number of times that like Cacmea just followed him and was just like, hey, you seem cool. And he kept like feeding him. And he's like, can I stay with you? And James is like, yeah, for sure. Like there was so many times that happened with him.
and I think that's what
Um,
my like version of the Pokemon Master is basically you are the Newt Scamander of the Pokemon universe. Like you take care of these animals, you research them, you know a lot about them, and they can like when they see you or what you know when these Pokemon are around you, they know that they can trust you or that they're not
Right.
in any danger no matter what. And I don't think we saw that with Ash, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes now that he has this world championship, like we've said before. But yeah.
It
He's
was
going off the air. That's where he's going.
there's
Basically.
like fan theories that think that maybe one of the new protagonists will be like his kid, which I think would be nice. Like I'd be like, that's cool. It's a nice passing the torch thing,
Yeah.
you know, but who knows?
Or someone who watched him win the championship and like inspired
Yeah.
their hero journey.
Yeah.
I just
'Cause
like
then it's cycles.
they're already like, he'll be back. I'm like, no, just let him ride off into the sunset. Like,
Well-
you don't need to bring him back.
No, with either Misty or the other girl. I don't know her name. The one with is it purple
So
hair?
many.
There's
So
so
many.
many girls.
There's been Misty, May, Dawn, Iris, Serena, and Bonnie. Then you had his friends in Alola, Lana, Mallow, and Lily.
Oh my God.
And then the new franchise has Chloe.
Ash is a player.
I know Ash got more game than Brock could ever want. Like, there you go.
Basically, poor Brock. Poor Brock.
even with that 11-part kind of wrap-up series that they're doing, they even brought back Misty and Brock. Like they're all traveling together again. Because again, they're like, this is full circle at this point. Like we are going to go all the way back to the beginning and just really like remind you guys how this all started as he finishes his journey.
Yeah.
So like, and they're even doing that with Team Rocket. Like the next episode is like all of Team Rocket's old Pokemon come back. And you're
Aw,
like, oh.
my heart.
It's
Right?
so sweet. It's a good. I'm glad that this show has, grow. Even though I'm no longer a part of the fandom, it's cool to see it grow in the way that it has, and that kids that I teach who are, 7 years old, who are being drawn into this world now. So it's really nice to see it go full circle for us too, like it has for Ash.
I think it just speaks to the like generational impact of Pokemon. Like same thing with the Disney brand is that if you love something and you latch onto it, you'll pass it down to that next generation and that
Mhm.
love. And whether that be like your kids or your nephews or just like having playing online, like with Twitch streamers nowadays, like I played Red and Blue. And then now people are Twitch streaming, playing Scarlet and Violet, sharing their love of the games. People see that. And it just creates this like again, like storytelling traditions, like we use these games as a storytelling tradition of like, oh, this is my team, this is who I'm repping, and who we're sharing the story, just like the lore of the Pokemon games are.
Do you remember? Do you remember
Sure.
when it went viral for all the Twitch plays Pokemon?
Yes,
Do you
Twitch
remember
plays
that?
Pokemon is.
You ever see
one of-
that, Renee?
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't even remember how long ago. I want to say it was like 2016. Like it was a little while ago at this point, but like they literally somehow they coded it so that Twitch chat was playing Pokemon. So it
Oh.
was Twitch chat inputting the commands to see can the hive mind basically win this game. And eventually they did, which was so impressive because they had to coordinate some like really difficult parts. They were able to catch Zapdos.
Yep.
You're like, how how?
But it's like you would have to type in the chat like up arrow and it would move the character up one click. But like hundreds of thousands of people are typing in the chat, and it's like it's so impressive. Like what was the Omastar? What was it? Helix?
The Helix fossil.
Heal-
Consult Lord Helix.
Yes,
Lord
praise
Helix.
because someone would always try to just open the menu and like everyone would just click on the Helix fossil. Everything was like praise Helix, praise Helix.
Is
Yeah.
Helix. Like it was, but that's the thing. Like it is a generational thing, and it's fun to see people revisit the classics and see where this all started. So I'm kind of excited to see. Like I probably will allow my anime watching to end with Ash's journey. Like I will be like, you know what, that was good. I don't need to keep going. But for people that are kind of discovering Pokemon right now, like I think it's kind of cool to get new protagonists in here for them to start growing up with, because it's a little daunting to realize, oh, there's like several hundred episodes of Pokemon, there's probably 1,000, close to 2,000. I don't even know.
Many.
Right?
Yeah.
How many ever
I want to
episodes?
get the exact number.
Yes. Let me know.
Please do.
But it's like, to look at that and be like, oh my God, if I wanted to understand this entire arc of his, I have to watch over 1,000 episodes to catch up. And that's probably why they restarted as much as they did, so that people didn't have to feel like, oh, I'm so far behind.
Yeah.
But like, it's nice that they're kind of pushing the reset button and to see a new hero's journey. Because I don't think, based on what I can understand, they're not going to follow the typical, like, I'm going to get all the badges and go fight the Pokemon League. So it's going to be, I think it will be a little bit more of a hero's journey with these two to see where they go and what they do.
Yeah.
Did you find the number, Bryan?
No, because they have them split up all the way. Here we go.
Got it.
The Pokemon anime series debuted in Japan on April 1st, 1997, and currently has 1,231 episodes.
That's a lot.
That's not including movies. That's not including specials.
Nope. Just the anime series.
Mm-hmm.
Seasons 1 through 13, and then 14 through the present. There's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yep.
And it's created such a vast and interesting world for people to theorize about and enjoy. Mm-hmm. So that is the best thing. So as we come to the end of this episode, we won't be doing most likely. If you've been listening, you know what that is. Bryan, normally we would take the two characters that we talk about and kind of just do most likelies with them. But since we were only doing with one character, that is a little tricky. But I wanted to just give
people are at the front door.
You. Oh, no problem.
That's probably my inspector, so I must head out.
Okay. Before we go, I just wanted to give Bryan or BJ a chance to add anything else that they had in mind about the Pokemon journey. But Bryan, we'll see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
BJ, is there anything else you wanted to add to what we've talked about? The hero's journey, Pokemon, Ash?
Nah, I mean, I've done a lot of talking on this one, so people are probably like, oh my God.
It's totally fine. No, again, I enjoy having people on who are passionate about what we're talking about. And especially since I don't know much about the Pokemon story, it was good to have you and Bryan here because I know you all are very passionate about it. So
Did this inspire you to go play one of the new games?
maybe I might, look into it eventually. We'll see. I'm still trying to wait till I can get. I have to have time. It's what it is.
That
Play
is
any
that is
games.
important.
Yes, time to play any games.
Mhm.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you, BJ, and thank you, Bryan, who had to leave, for joining us. Listeners, I will get Bryan's information and add it on to the credits of this episode. But BJ, we have yours too, so I'll put that in, and they can find you if they're interested in following you. Our sources for today were, of course, tvtropes.org, Wikipedia, the novelsmithy.com, which is where we found out more about the hero's journey. And then, of course, just thank you to Satoshi Tajiri. If it hadn't been for you, we wouldn't have this like amazing story that we do have. Anime probably wouldn't have been as mainstream or become as mainstream in the US as it was or as it is because of Pokemon. So just appreciate all that you have done. But listeners, I hope you'll join me for chapter 7 of the show. If you want to hear us discuss any other heroes, any more people applying it to the hero's journey, you can just search for us on TikTok or on Insta using our title. If you want to suggest any characters, you can also email us at deepinplot23@gmail.com. Until then, I hope that you stay deep in plot, and we will see you next time. Interested in following the guest, the host of the show? You can find BJ at BJ Grip on Facebook, Bryan at Bern Kernderr, BERNKERNDERR on Insta. You can find Renee at Universally Geeky on Insta or TikTok. You can follow the show on Insta at Deep in Plot Pod, on TikTok at Deep in Plot, or you can email us at deepinplot23@gmail.com. See you next time.